I'm going to take down Trump, ignore the fact that I gave my boyfriend a crap ton of money and went on a lot of vacations and I didn't claim it. Interesting turn of events. She's taking some control from the judge. I don't know how that's going to work out in the ultimate decision. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to take a second to talk about a case that originally wasn't on my radar for a long time. But once I started digging into this case, I just thought it was a fascinating study of human behavior, the dynamics of politics, irony of lying when you're in a position of trust. And it's the Fani Willis hearing where Trump's lawyers are trying to get her off the record for a conflict. It's full of juice, so you guys may or may not know about it, but I'll give you a quick rundown about what this case is. Fani Willis is a district of attorney in Atlanta, and she was tasked, or she decided to indict Trump on some racketeering charges related to election fraud in the state of Atlanta. Highly political event, whether you like Trump or not, I don't care. What I think is important for people, though, is to understand how things can go off the rails quickly if you don't have amazing characters. So a lot of fanfare, charged Trump, but then it turns out that Fani Willis has a lover who she happened to hire to be the lead prosecutor in this case, and his name is Mr. Wade. Mr. Wade didn't have a lot of experience in this area, but he was able to bill the state of Georgia, or the county where the prosecution was happening, almost $700,000 in 2 years. What Fani Willis didn't do is disclose to anybody that she had an intimate partner relationship with this fellow, and that this fellow was paying for vacations that she was going on his law firm credit card, which you're not allowed to do. When you're a public official, there's a lot of rules that says you cannot get gifts or gifts in kind from anybody that you have authority over or have the ability to enter into a contract with. Organizations often have this to make sure that public officials can't be bought. You're not even allowed to get a coffee bought for you in some cases, let alone a dinner, and most certainly not a vacation. So this gentleman, while he's billing tons of money, and if you look at his testimony before we see Fani Willis testify, was confronted that on some of his dockets and bills submitted to the county, he billed 24 hours of legal work in a day. This looks like graft to me. He had a very poor explanation. You should watch that guy's testimony as well. It's embarrassing. Whenever you get attorneys on the stand, it's a gift because they're often overconfident and they make mistakes that they've told their clients not to do multiple times. But here's what we know before we start. And this is fascinating because if this judge rules that she's conflicted, she gets removed from the case, and the whole prosecution against Trump can be dropped. And this was seen as one of the bigger ones that could have hurt him. But here's what we know. Fani Willis gave Mr. Wade a no-bid contract, meaning nobody competed against Mr. Wade. Now, it's alleged they had a romantic relationship back in 2019 before he got the contract. The two of them deny it, even though one of her friends came forward and said, yes, they had a relationship. They were using a condo as a crash pad. She has an interesting explanation of that we'll get into. But a no-bid contract, and he bills almost $700,000. Willis and Wade were in a sexual relationship. She approved the bills that were ongoing without question, including the aforementioned 24 hours of work in one day. They kept the relationship secret, and he ended up lying in some of his family court documents about whether or not he was in a relationship. He actually filed for divorce 24 hours after receiving the contract from Fani Willis's office. Wade paid for multiple lavish vacations. Willis said she paid him back in cash. And this is going to be a really interesting part of this testimony because we all know that there's a way to track things and there's a way not to. And there are cash apps where you can send people cash, and she used those all the time for rent and other things. But the one place where she didn't have any record is when she was paying back her lover for vacations. She paid him in cash, and there's no receipt. And if you want to know where Mr. Wade is going to go down, he used his corporate credit card to pay for the vacations, maybe ostensibly as a business expense, but he can't have it both ways. So if he says that he received cash to pay them back, but didn't put them back into his law firm, he was receiving income that he didn't declare to the tax department. So the IRS may be coming after him because essentially we now have under sworn testimony that he was receiving large amounts of cash from Fani Willis to pay back for expenses, for things he claimed as an expense on a business account. This is going to land somebody in a lot of hot water. Well, anything involving Trump is interesting. The guy is just a force of nature. It's interesting because you have a district attorney, somebody who prosecutes people, who puts them in jail. Incredible power, incredible prestige, and to be put on the stand and cross-examined is an interesting, very interesting thing to watch. Now, and we're going to see that she claims she uses race and gender card many times to try to give her an out or a story that makes her more credible. And you guys can be judges for yourself to see if that worked. And it's interesting because trials are freaking fun to watch, especially when the stakes are high and somebody is likely lying, and especially when somebody is in a position of power. It's nice to see somebody who has the power of life and death over other people be put in the witness box and see how they respond to questioning. From my perspective, this is a dream witness. Police officers are great at giving evidence, and they're very hard nuts to crack. But when you get a doctor or a lawyer or a former judge, I once had a former referee of a professional sports league in the witness box, and it was just joyous to see how the individual was so used to commanding his arena, right, step into a trial lawyer's arena where he couldn't call the shots, blow the whistle, and get out of there. And it's just amazing if you're a skilled cross-examiner to have somebody who's arrogant, overconfident, and driven by their ego sitting in the box. In this case, I think the attorneys did a pretty good job, but there's a reason why I think they didn't nail it, is because they were in the middle of arguing whether or not she would be allowed to testify. Her and her office fought so hard to try to keep her from testifying. But all of a sudden, in this turn of events, she runs into the courtroom and says, "I'm testifying." And you'll see that this just looks like a TV drama series. I think it caught the first attorney off guard. And so she had to rely on her notes. And it would have been better if she could rely on her spidey sense, because there are a lot of avenues that were not explored on this that a well-prepared and expert cross-examiner, I think, could have utterly destroyed Fani. She was actually lucky, I think, almost unintended. She kind of made her cross-examination a little easier because they were in the middle of arguing whether or not she should be called to the stand. And so by rushing in, the attorneys weren't as well prepared as they would have been if they would have adjourned for the day and they would have come back and started the next day. So what I'm going to do is use some of my trial experience and human experience as somebody who's trained in psychological operations, information warfare, human intelligence, having a master's in conflict, a master's in culture, hundreds of trials under my belt, studying people and cross-examining people who are lying for their own interest. This stuff I love. I think you're going to love this video. We're going to go through what I think are the important parts of her testimony. And what I'm going to try to do is teach you a little bit about when you might be able to pick up if somebody is exhibiting behaviors that you should pay attention to, because some of these things you can't get away from. They're evolutionary responses that no matter how smart you are, you can't stop. For example, things you would be looking for: blink rates. Look at somebody's eyes. When they're calm, they're blinking at a very relaxed rate. But if you ask them a question that causes them stress, you'll see that blink rate triple or quadruple often. Breathing. Relaxed people breathe from the stomach. You can just see them. You can't even see the breathing. But when people start to get nervous, all of a sudden you'll see the chest rising quite a bit more, because now they're going to chest breathing, right? That's a nervous system response. Watch for the mouth. When the lips compress, licking the lips, dry mouth is a symptom of nervousness. Doesn't mean that you're always lying, but it means that something is going on. So you'll see a lot of lip compressions, lip licking, eye movement, watch where the hands go. We're going to go through this and see if you can pick up on what I pick up on as we examine the testimony of Fani Willis. So we're about to see her walk into the courtroom. Nobody really knew she was going to do this, and we'll chat about what happens here.
I need 3 documents in front of me, and they're the 3 filings of Ms. Merchant. 3 filings. Because anyone have the 3 filings of Ms. Merchant? Does the court have the 3 filings of Ms. Merchant?
When you say the filings, you mean like the pleadings?
The pleadings, yes, Your Honor.
Okay. I think we could locate those for you in the supplemental.
I want the one filed on January the 8th, the one filed immediately after we filed ours, and the final one.
If you want to take a break to get them, I can make a copy. I think we have one.
Okay, so Fani Willis bursts into the courtroom. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. She's going to take the stand. What I take from this right away is what I call egoic positioning. There is a judge up there. She's the district attorney. She's not been in the witness box before. She's been on the other side putting people in jail. So she always had power. So she storms into the courtroom, takes the seat, and immediately starts issuing directions. This is something you never see from a witness, right? Witnesses get up there and they're told to answer questions. But she gets in there, sits down, spreads her body out, and starts demanding paperwork. Like she's the judge, actually. And she was actually at one point in the past a small town judge part-time. So you can see her trying to act like a judge in the witness box. This particular judge is a very, very calm gentleman. I think he could have been a lot stronger because she gets away with stuff in this case that nobody else would get away with.
You know, the only copy I have is going to have my notes on it. So if we don't have a clean copy,
Have a 5-minute break, Your Honor.
Let's
I'll get
take
the documents.
all right.
I'll sit here and wait for him.
So what's interesting, when you're looking at anybody you want to examine, whether it's you're going into a high-level negotiation with a competing corporation, whether you're talking with a spouse who you might suspect to be cheating, or when you're dealing with a witness who you want to establish, or when the police are even investigating somebody, right? You'll often see police when they're investigating somebody in a room, an interrogation room, engage in a little calm, casual banter. The reason why expert investigators do that is they're establishing a baseline of communication. So when I'm calm, I'm just talking to you, looking normal, my hands are doing something, I can establish this is how somebody talks when they're not stressed. Watching Fani here, she's sitting back. She is breathing rapidly in the chest. She's stressed. Her eyes are scanning the room nonstop. That's kind of what we do when we're worried about threats. Normal, though. She's going into a very stressful situation for a district attorney. Lots on the line. You got a Trump case on one hand, and you have an extramarital affair with somebody who you gave a contract to on the other hand, and you're trying to keep it all together. This is beautiful stuff for a good lawyer. Like, to me, I would trade a lot of things to be able to be in the spot to cross-examine Miss Willis right now, just because of the opportunities there are from a professional development perspective. But you guys hopefully saw heavy breathing, scanning the room, and trying to control the situation. You see some lip licking, that's fine, and we're going to go on to kind of the first serious question.
Ms. Willis, how did you know to come into the courtroom right then?
There were people, I was pacing in my office,
Okay.
and I heard someone yell, "His testimony is done." It only made sense to me that I would be your next witness, and I've been very anxious to have this conversation with you today. So I ran to the courtroom.
Let's stop here for a second. This is important. This person has such high responsibility for the country, right? She's prosecuting the ex-president. Her integrity and character has to be the highest. So she's asked, because everybody is asking, how did you know to just run into the courtroom, right? Her ex-boyfriend had just finished testifying. And she said, there were people out there who said he was done. Her lawyers were in the process of fighting to keep her off the stand, right? But she says, I just anticipated I'd be the next one. So that's not honest. She knew that they were fighting. What happened, if you ask me, and I'm not an expert and all these are my opinions, if she was watching the testimony of Mr. Wade, which she's not supposed to be doing, and his testimony and his answers to some effective cross-examination got her fired up and very upset and brought her brain, whatever rational element of her brain was left in the dust, for an emotional element. And so she storms in like she's going to tell off her girlfriends, or like all of the energy is like, I'm coming in to tell you how it is. And she probably didn't talk to her lawyers because they were in the court arguing before this. So I believe she lies right off the start when she says, I just thought I was the next witness, so that's why I came in. No, she decided that she was going to storm in and tell everybody what the real truth is. That's how she knew. It's because she was watching it. I think that is important. I would have dug a little bit deeper into this because I think her rushing in, she wasn't prepared to answer deep questions. Most lawyers don't ask kind of 3 to 4 layers deep. They ask 2 and allow a witness to get away with a fib.
So as soon as you heard that Mr. Wade was done testifying, that's when you just assumed you would be the next witness?
It only makes sense.
Did you listen to any of the testimony?
I've been in my office pacing, ma'am.
Did you listen to any?
Let's stop there. Did you listen to any of the testimony? She just says, I've been in my office pacing, ma'am. She didn't answer the question. The question would be, because any lawyer knows you're not allowed to, be like, absolutely not. But she just said, I've been in my office pacing. You know what I bet is in her office? A TV. This trial is being played live on multiple news stations in Atlanta. So when she's asked, were you listening to his testimony? She just goes, I was in my office pacing. Doesn't answer the question. I'd be like, how about you don't go back and answer my question?
The arguments.
I did hear the arguments this morning. It's ridiculous to me that you lied on Monday, and yet here we still are. And I did listen to that argument.
All right, so that was it, just the argument, no testimony.
Right, I listened to the argument this morning where Adam Abadi, I thought, did an excellent job pointing out how dishonest you were with the court on Monday. And I'm actually surprised that the hearing continued. But since it did, here I am.
Great.
So if you're a budding trial lawyer and you want to kick ass in cases, or you just want to control discussions a bit more, a lawyer has an excellent opportunity to control what's said when a witness is in the witness stand. And this lawyer, unfortunately, has lost control. Ms. Willis has come into the witness box. She was asked a question, did you listen to any of the testimony? And you see her divert. Honest witnesses don't need to give you details, right? For example, if I had been asked that and I wasn't watching the testimony, I'd go, absolutely not. That's it. There's no reason for, but she goes, I did listen to the arguments though, and I did listen to Mr. Roboto, my lawyer, say that you're a liar, and I'm so surprised this is going on. So she's, right now there's a battle of wills. Who's going to control the story? Ms. Willis is controlling the story, right? By pulling out extraneous details to make her case look stronger. But you can see on her face, she's worried as heck. And so she's trying to grab the story in a way she's accustomed to. And as a trial lawyer, I would just go, let's just slow down for a second, Ms. Willis. You came in here kind of unannounced, and I'm just going to slow everything down. And I'm going to ask you to think about my questions and think about your answers. I asked you a very clear question. Did you listen to 1 second of the testimony of Mr. Wade? Yes or no? Right? And what you have to do is train the witness that you're not going to let them take you off the rails. And what I've done multiple times, and some of my mentors have taught me that, is anytime a witness takes you off a path that you don't want to be on, you make them pay by keeping them in that witness chair longer. They need to know that if they don't do what you're asking them to do, they're going to be there longer. And people don't want to be in that witness chair. So often when people don't answer a question that I ask, I'll say, okay, I'll stop and I'll walk over to another table slowly, grab a piece of paper, slowly walk back, and then show them how they were wrong. And what I'm doing is teaching them that if they don't bow to my questions, I'm going to make this excruciatingly long and painful. And it's also a gift when a witness doesn't answer the question yes or no, because a nervous and stressed brain can't keep track of the details. And so if the lawyer knows the details, these type of answers can expose a witness to credibility attacks that can be brutal. This lawyer is trying to recover because Ms. Willis ran in quickly and all of a sudden it was like, go. So she hasn't gripped it well off of the start. We'll see where it goes.
So let's just talk about what you did in preparation for today. Did you meet with Mr. Wade at all? Once the motion was filed, did you meet with Mr. Wade and talk to him about the motion that I filed to disqualify you?
On this first January motion?
Yes.
I don't know if you could say talked about. I probably had some choice words about some of the things that you said that were dishonest within this motion. So I don't know that it was a conversation. As you know, Mr. Wade is a Southern gentleman. Me, not so much.
Stopping it here. It's too good to pass. You can see scorn. Like there's elements of scorn when the nose goes up here This stuff, it's hard to fake that. There's pure scorn. But again, you didn't answer the question. Like, she's a district attorney. She's a lawyer. She knows that you're not supposed to speak with another witness about an upcoming court case. And she's asked, did you speak with Mr. Wade? And she starts going, about the case in particular, I had choice words about what a bitch you are. And she's kind of reverting to this old way of communicating, which is argumentative, as opposed to just saying, I absolutely did not talk about anything in relation to this case with Mr. Wade, right? This is an error of credibility that the lawyer should suck back and go, wait a second, I just asked you a simple question. Did you talk to him? Why? You don't need to attack me here, ma'am. And this was an opportunity I think lost, but the judge will be picking up on this. Let's watch Ms. Willis's body language from here.
Okay, but my question was, did you have a conversation with
I didn't
him?
have a substantive conversation.
You did not.
I read this motion, skimmed it more so, and
Right now, if I'm watching this witness, I know I got something. One, she introduces a word that's complex and not necessary. I did not have a substantive conversation. Like, for me, that's even a difficult meaning for me to understand. What does substantive conversation mean? She didn't talk about the substance of the case. She's using a complex word as a way to get out. She's creating a gray area that she can negotiate her way out of if she gets picked up on it. Because in the back of her head, she's thinking, is there going to be something that comes and proves me to be a liar? And if I'm found to be a liar in that box, I can be charged with perjury. But what we saw just before I stopped the video is this firm lip compression and a lip licking. She already knows that there's an issue with her testimony. She is nervous and she's trying to hide it with this aggression.
probably said some choice things to him about some of the lies they were told.
Okay.
And then printed in the media because, we used to be in a day and time where you had 60 Minutes and people did stories and they verified information and you had this great reporting. But it seems today that a lawyer writes a lie and then it's printed for all of the world to see.
Well, I just want to make sure that you answer the question I asked, though. So my question was,
Overruled, Mr. Abadi.
Did you see that lip licking, mouth rolling? That Ms. Willis hates this lawyer. And to me, when you hate the lawyer, that's an opportunity because people with anger make irrational decisions. The other lawyer objected. The lawyer's trying to get her back on specifics. And you can see the judge immediately said, overruled. She's not answering the question. Let's see her answer.
I told you what happened. I read the motion. I am sure I told him what my opinion of it is.
okay.
And past that, we had no substantive conversation.
You did not. Okay.
Is there something you didn't understand?
No, I just wanted to make sure that
Okay.
you did not have a meeting with him in the conference room to discuss the motion.
Next question,
No.
Ms. Merchant.
So in the conference room of my office within this week, you produced some financial document. That financial document was given to me, something, and I'm not even sure who was giving it to him by me or Mr. Abadi gave it to me. And I think he showed me a document in our conference room. But as far as a substantive conversation, I don't believe I've had any conversation with him that is substantive related to this.
Okay.
I have had conversations with him since you filed the motion, but they wouldn't be substantive to this. He sent me very nice sermons that have been done. And so we've had conversations about, did you listen to that sermon? Things of that nature. And I would say they were in relationship to this because I think he did it to be kind.
Okay.
So if you look at the mouth movement there's some definite issues, but the judge has got to be thinking, she knows why she's being asked the question, right? Did you talk about the case? This case rests on whether or not they had an affair earlier than the contract being signed. The extent of the affair, the extent of paying back for vacations, cash receipts. People would suspect that her and Mr. Wade may have a conversation about, okay, make sure you say when we went on this trip to Belize that I paid for this. Make sure you say. The reason why she's equivocating, which means creating gray zones around it. We might have had a conversation, but I was talking about how much of a liar you are, and we might have had a conversation about this, but nothing substantive. That's because, from my estimation, she knows people are out there who may have saw them having meetings prior to this hearing. And so if she said we never had a meeting, she could be exposed for lying. So she's creating a gray area, which a good fact finder in a jury or a judge should be saying, why aren't you just answering basic legal questions that you know what they mean and could be answered yes or no?
Let's start back in 2019.
Yeah.
So you and Mr. Wade met in October 2019 at a conference?
That is correct. And I think in one of your motions, you tried to implicate I slept with him at that conference, which I find to be extremely offensive. I stayed at that conference. Mr. Wade was my teacher. I did not meet him when he taught the class. I was standing outside talking to Lisa Reeves, who is a judge. Me and her were just having a conversation. Mr. Wade walks up. I think they hug each other. They have some brief conversation. She introduces us.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. We kind of thought that when you asked the question, you can answer the question, not a speech, so I object to the speech.
I
I
agree,
believe I'm
Judge.
able to explain my answers.
I believe she's able to explain her answer.
And that's,
Ms. Merchant, that's okay. I can handle it. Ms. Willis, I'll ask you to just listen to the answer, or excuse me, the question, and keep the answers confined to the question as best you can. I think you'll have more than enough ample opportunity on when the state was
Well,
able
it's
to ask
highly offensive
follow-ups.
when someone lies on you, and it's highly offensive when they try
Judge.
to implicate that you slept with somebody the first day you met with them, and I take exception to it.
All right. Well, Ms. Willis, have.
So again, we got a lot of mouth movement that's showing anger, scorn. But again, it's a district attorney, right? You know, the highest level of prosecutor in the state. Why would you say it's highly offensive when somebody lies on you? Like, this is not high school talk. She's saying when somebody lies on you. She knows that in court cases, there are allegations that sometimes aren't true, sometimes are based on good faith, but she's essentially telling the judge it's highly offensive when somebody lies on you and says, I slept with him at the first conference, even though we know there's a witness that said they had a relationship at that time, right? So it's not like there's things that are just being made up, but she doesn't think anybody can prove they slept together, so she's making it look like it's offensive because I would never do that. To me, it actually opens the door for me to saying, what, you've never slept with somebody on the first date? Like, why is it offensive? If you like somebody and you're a consenting adult and you have a connection, why is it offensive for you to sleep with them at the conference? This is her engaging in a personal argument over her character rather than just answer the questions. Yes, I first met Mr. Wade at this conference. That's all she needs to answer. She doesn't say there was a judge beside us. They were having all of these details. Just tell me that this is a very nervous spot for her, and so she's giving tons of distraction, extraneous details that take us away from you met him here. Now, we'll move on from there.
Ms. Merchant, if you want more concise answers, perhaps you could lead the witness.
I will. Thank you, Judge. Isn't it true that you met Mr. Wade October 2019 at the judge's
We
conference?
haven't gotten to the point where Ms. Willis should be treated hostile in this situation.
I think we
And
have.
I'm very much want to be here, so I'm not a hostile witness. I very much want to be here.
Not so much that you're hostile, Ms. Willis, it'd be an adverse witness. Your interests are opposed to Ms. Merchant's.
Thank you.
Merchant's interests are contrary to democracy, Your Honor, not to
From
mine.
my perspective, the question as a trial lawyer you would ask yourself is, what do I do here? Essentially, the witness just said that that Ms. Merchant as a lawyer, her interests are contrary to democracy. So she's trying to stake a flag, that because she wants to ask me a question about whether or not I had an improper affair with somebody who I gave a $700,000 contract to and didn't disclose it, she is running against democracy. That's what you do when you want people to ignore the details of your misdeeds, perhaps, and focus on the bigger issue. Like, I'm going to take down Trump, ignore the fact that I gave my boyfriend a crap ton of money and went on a lot of vacations and I didn't claim it. Right? Interesting turn of events. She's taking some control from the judge. I don't know how that's going to work out in the ultimate decision, but so far, Fani Willis has shown that she is very hostile, very defensive, unwilling to answer simple questions, and a well-prepared cross-examiner could really rip her apart here.
So we've confirmed when you met. After that, isn't it true?
No, I need to explain this, and I think I get to explain my answers. When I met him, Judge Reeves introduced us. He handed me his business card. I'm unsure if I handed him my business card, but we exchanged
Who
information.
cares about
He
the
said,
goddamn
"If you ever need
business
any help,
cards?"
give me a call. And he walked to the parking lot.
So after that, you started dating shortly thereafter, correct?
That's a lie. That's one of your lies.
Okay. Do you know Robin Yurdy?
Okay, so I like this. So she says she started dating soon after. She goes, that's a lie. That's one of your lies. And then there's a lot of lipping and mouth pursing. And we're now moving into her being asked about Robin Yurty. And Robin Yurty is her old friend who has testified that that's when the relationship started. And it's important because the contract was signed in 2021, but she just acknowledged that she met in 2019. Right? Why it's relevant if a judge is there, nobody knows. But see for yourself or decide for yourself if you think this witness is overly defensive about this, because what would you say? I met so-and-so in 2019 at a conference. You're correct. Is that when you started to have a relationship with them? No. It's easy. Those are just easy answers. But she knows what's been said by her friend, by Mr. Wade, and so she is trying to control the narrative. Let's see how she responds to being confronted with the fact that her friend said they had a relationship.
I know her as Robin Bryant. I knew her. So Robin did not go to my college. She went to the college of, I went to Howard University. She went to Morgan State. I met her through some people I knew. In college, we hung out a bit. Not much because she was in Baltimore and I was in Washington, D.C., but we hung out a bit. After college, I lost contact with her. I probably didn't see Robin again until maybe 7 or 8 years ago, a chance meeting here in Atlanta, but we did not have a consistent relationship from when I left college and came to Emory Law School here in Atlanta. But 8 to 10 years ago, just by happenstance, I ran into her.
All right, again, like, she should have taught prosecutors how to prepare your witnesses to only answer yes or no to questions. It's like, how did, and so she's asked about Robin Purdy. And rather than just say, she's a friend I met, there's tons of details. But what she's trying to do is make her look like she's not as good as a friend as Robin said she was. They've known each other for 36 years. They partied together in university, and they reacquainted themselves 8 years ago, and she actually worked for Ms. Willis, and that she didn't even say that in her description of it. But you can tell when a witness is trying to shape a story to minimize something that they know could be important down the road. And when I see a witness doing that, I know it's time to lean into that.
So she was in Atlanta.
You have been friends with Robin for 30-something years.
Did you hear my answer, madam?
Yes, and I'm asking if you've been friends with her for 30-something years.
I've known her for 30-something years. We certainly hung out and partied together in college. She was from the D.C. area. She would come home, we'd party together. Wasn't close, but she was certainly in the girlfriends that partied together. And then, like I said, I ran into her about 10 years ago in Atlanta, Georgia.
So
But we didn't talk throughout that time period. I didn't see her. I didn't even know where she was. When I ran into her, I was surprised she was in Atlanta. And so, yes, I have known her probably since 1990, 1991, but we have not maintained a consistent relationship that whole time.
for the last 10 years or 5, whatever you'd like to classify it as, have you been friends with her?
I have not spoken to Robin in over a year. I certainly.
Okay, again, this is just beautiful. The problem that this lawyer is going to be experiencing is the judge is terrified. The judge is kind of sitting there with the district attorney on the stand on a Trump case, and it's just a very difficult situation for a judge to be in. It's going to be attacked. But I don't know about you, but I've got a friend who I've known for 35 years. And if we didn't stop being friends because we hated each other and I didn't see him for 10 years but saw him later, I'd say, yeah, he's been my friend for 34 years. We never stopped being friends. We just didn't hang out. But there's this long description about how there's a big gap where we didn't see each other. Why are you arguing about whether or not she's been your friend for 34 years? Why are you trying to minimize that? And then when the lawyer tries to say, okay, well, between 5 and 10 years, you've been friends. All she has to say is yes. But she says, I have not spoken to her in the last year. That doesn't matter. That is a huge red flag that this person is hiding something.
I do not consider her a friend now. I think that she, there's a saying, no good deed goes unpunished. And I think that she betrayed our friendship.
So let's
When I
narrow it
met
down, the timeline though. So my questions are going to be from the time period of 2019 until she no longer was employed for you, the last time you all talked. So all of my next questions are just focused on that time frame, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Up until she left your office.
Yes, ma'am.
During 2019, you all were friends, correct?
Yes, we knew each other in 2019.
During 2020, you all were friends, correct?
We were friends during that time period.
During 2021, you all were friends, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And such good friends that when you needed a place to stay, you asked her if you could take over her lease.
That's a lie.
You did
That's
not move into her apartment?
I
or her
did, but
condo?
that's not the way you characterize it is wrong.
I asked if you could take over her lease.
I did not ask if I could take over her lease.
Did you move into her apartment?
I moved into her condo in April of 21. The circumstances around that were that Robin met her husband. They wanted to move into another and separate place. She wanted to get rid of her condo. My father was living with me at the house. Because of this case.
All right, so you've seen a little bit of a departure from a baseline here. She's been leaning back. Now she's leaning forward. This is almost what I would say is a planned kind of attack theme where she's going to come in and set the record straight. It's very odd that when you said you took over her lease, she says that's a lie. What we know that happened is Ms. Willis moved in to Robin's condo in 2019. And it seemed to be a little after the date that it suggested that she started dating Mr. Wade. Now, she had a house where her father lived and a couple of her kids would pop in every once in a while. But the condo is downtown, closer to Mr. Wade, closer to the office. They were friends. What would one assume from there? Now, Ms. Willis is going to tell us that it's because she had security concerns, and we'll discuss that, whether it's legitimate. But the thing that's in most people's minds is this couple getting a crash pad, right? Where they can kind of have a relationship that they keep from other people, which happens a lot. And you want to ask yourself, why are we arguing about petty details when you could just say, yeah, I moved into her place? That's all you need to say.
And because of my stance on gangs, my life was being threatened regularly. My father urged me to leave our home. At the same time, as luck would have it, Robin wanted to give up her lease because she wanted to move in with this new man she met, who eventually became her husband. And so, as life circumstances worked, my dad was begging me to leave the house. He was afraid for me, afraid for his grandchildren. She wanted someone to take over her lease so that she didn't, have to pay a fee or get abandoned. And so, I don't remember when, but probably March or April of 21, I move in and take over her lease.
So wasn't the question that she said was a lie, didn't you take over her lease? And she goes, no, I didn't take over her lease, that's a lie. But then right there, she goes, probably in March of 2019, I took over her lease. Like, it's crazy odd, but let me just suggest to you, you're the district attorney, you're prosecuting gangs. Now later, Ms. Willis is gonna say that she had to move out because Trump supporters were threatening her. And it's very true, as a former prosecutor, I was always concerned how vulnerable, especially some of the female prosecutors were, to these violent guys confronting them, especially outside of the courthouse. But Ms. Willis has a security team. Where you get your security advice from, generally, is your security team. But she didn't get that advice from her security team. So she's trying to make it look like my father told me I should move out because this is a dangerous place for me and my children. Okay. What your father thinks isn't that relevant. Her father is a bit of a conspiracy theorist who said he predicted COVID years before it happened. But ask yourself, why she's trying to speak from authority. The authority of my father said to move out of my house, and just so happened I take over my friend's lease in a condo downtown, close to Mr. Wade is. It doesn't really make sense. My follow-up question would be, when was there a security assessment done by your security team that identified that there were problems that had to be addressed so that we had to protect your location and whereabouts? This is something that is critical to a security team that is hired on a full-time basis to protect the district attorney. There's no conversation of it, and the lawyer just kind of allows it to sneak through that her father is somehow in charge of her security.
And did you pay her or did you pay the leasing agent?
No, I don't even know who the leasing agent was. I paid her.
You paid her. Did you pay her cash or did you use a card?
There were some times that I would give her cash, but mostly I paid her via Cash App. That would be the most convenient thing. So I would not only give her her rent, but then like when the utilities would come in, whatever the utility was, she might be like, I need $70, I need $100, whatever it was. And we never had a problem with money. Whatever she told me it was, I never asked to see a bill. I never questioned her. I just gave it to her.
What percentage would you say you paid cash versus cash out?
Oh, the vast majority was Cash App.
This is going to be important. So she's paying, when you pay with a Cash App, most of you know, it's coming from your bank account to somebody as kind of cash. It's like a direct e-transfer. That's a Cash App. There's a record of it. So she's paying through a Cash App to her friend for the rent. And we'll see later if she pays with a Cash App to reimburse Mr. Wade for gifts.
I don't know what percentage. I'm not going to guess that. But the vast majority was Cash App. But there would be times she would say, this bill came in at $70. Here goes $70.
Did you have a monthly rent amount that you paid her?
I can't remember. It was $1,500. I can't remember what it was. And it would vary, which I don't understand to this day. But like I said, I never questioned her.
When did you move
Whatever
out?
she said it was, that's what I paid.
When did you
I
move
abruptly moved out in February, either late January or early February of 22.
Of 22.
Yes,
February
ma'am.
2022, is that what you said?
February of
Jan-
22. I believe it is January,
I'm
but
going to skip ahead to try. All right, so we're going to move into some questions about when she went on vacation with Mr. Wade. This is important because any vacation that you would go on with somebody who's subject to a contract with the government would be considered a gift, and you couldn't have anything paid for by somebody who's being paid by the government when you're an authority figure in the government. In response to this first question, let's see how Ms. Willis answers, when did you first go on vacation?
Mr. Wade. Let's just go one by one. Let's start with the first one. What's the first time you went on vacation with Mr. Wade?
I think the first time we went on vacation was around April of 22. And it's a vacation is a stretch, but I'm trying to be comprehensive. I recall April of 22. His birthday is March the 18th. So that
When a witness says, I'm trying to be honest, generally they're not. When she says she's trying to be comprehensive, I don't believe her. She actually has fought releasing her Delta travel records. So she knows that the other side doesn't have her airline records. There's allegations of way up more trips, but she does know from listening to the testimony, I believe, of certain vacations that have come out on the record through Mr. Wade. What I want you to pay attention to from a body language change is that as soon as she's asked about the vacations, her hand movement changes. And something that humans can't prevent themselves from doing unless they consciously do it is protecting them. You'll see men when they're nervous often kind of cover the genitals. You'll just see a hand move there. That's an evolutionary protection method. But one of the things that you'll see that humans always do is they protect the neck. The neck is where the leopard grabs you in the middle of the night. That's to kill the vulnerable spot of anybody who's being preyed upon, because we come from animals who were preyed upon. The neck is what we always protect. And when the hands go to the neck, you often can probably suspect vulnerability. So now as she's talking, you're going to see the hands are around the neck. They were down here, there was finger wagging, but now all of a sudden she's being asked. Now it could be construed as pensive. I'm going to be pensive here because this is very difficult for me to think about when I went on vacations with my boyfriend who was going through a divorce. I don't know, but I see this as she is vulnerable and she's calculating what she says because she knows this is a dangerous space.
It would have been his 49th birthday. I took him to Tennessee for the day. I think we went to a museum. I think we might have stayed the night. I'm not sure. But, Tennessee's kind of hard to call a vacation, but I just am trying to be inclusive.
Who cares about Tennessee? You're trying to be inclusive. You're not trying to be inclusive. You're using language that's bullshit. Tennessee is easy to call a vacation, but you're being asked about the first time you went on a vacation with your new boyfriend, and you can't remember if you spent the night? Is anybody calling bullshit? Like the first time you go on vacation with your new boyfriend or girlfriend, you know if you spent the night. It's a big deal. It's generally fun. But she's minimizing this as something, it's just Tennessee. It's not a vacation. I can't tell if we slept the night. This is just a credibility minefield for her.
I said, I know it wasn't more than a day.
She didn't spend the night.
I think that we did. That's what I'm telling you. I think that there's a possibility that we stayed that night in April of 22.
Who paid for the hotel?
I think I did. It was his birthday.
And would you have used a credit card?
When I started dating Mr. Wade, it was right around then.
April 2022?
22, yes.
2022.
It was around then. I don't know, like, you know, it's not like when you're in grade school and you send a little letter and it says, will you be my girlfriend, and you check it. I don't know the day that we started seeing each other, but it was early 22 is my recollection.
Okay, early 22. And you all went to Florida on vacation as well?
Why do you need to talk about grade school? Like you generally know when you start dating somebody, but if you were to go back and watch the breathing, you can see chest breathing, a lot of breathing up here. And she goes, I don't know the exact date, but it was around early 22. The reason why you don't say an exact date is so you can't be held to it. She knows that they were dating earlier. She knows that a witness has testified that they were dating earlier, but her and Mr. Wade are saying that it didn't start until April 22 because that is what they believe absolves them from any misdeeds in relation to the relationship.
I don't recall going to Florida on vacation with him.
You never went to Florida with Mr. Wade?
When we went to get on the cruise ship, we went to Miami.
Okay, that's the only time that you went to Florida with him?
I think we went to Miami and spent the night. That's my recollection.
Okay.
I think we spent one night so that we wouldn't miss the ship. That's my recollection of our
Who paid for that hotel?
In Miami? I don't remember that.
And how'd you get to Miami?
So we got more chest breathing, but it's easy to kind of criticize a lawyer when you're in your studio and you don't have the stress, but she's talking about 2022. It's early 2024. You know, how many cruises have you gone on, Ms. Willis, since 2022 and 2024? Well, I've only gone on 2, both with Mr. Wade. Did you go on 100 cruises before that? No, actually, I didn't go on any during the COVID time. So this would have been a big deal for you. And you're telling His Honor that you can't remember if you stayed overnight in Miami before you went on the cruise? Why are you, you would know this. This would be an amazing time for you. You're going away with your new boyfriend on a cruise. Most people would believe that you would know these details, but why is she obfuscating and she's constantly creating gray areas? I can't be sure, I don't know, because she doesn't want to be able to be tied down to a lie, but she's just trying to jump away from any accountability.
We would have flown. And we've done that, so that I'm clear, we've done that twice. I think one time we stayed, and I honestly can't tell you, did we stay when the ship left or did we stay when the ship came back? I also can't tell you, so there's 2 cruises out of Miami. There's one that's in that October time period that was with his mom. And then there was another that was a New Year's Eve trip. I know I paid for the New Year's Eve trip because the tickets were $697 each. And I thought this is ridiculous that the tickets are $700 to go to Miami. But when you travel during New Year's Eve, you know, they get you.
So let's just back up and talk about the first time that you went to Florida with Mr. Wade.
Very
that was the
interesting,
time that you said you stayed in
Thank you.
Miami at the hotel the first night?
That's the time I told you I am not sure. So I'm not sure of 2 things. So I want to make sure that my testimony is clear.
All right, let me stop here. And this is where I start to get annoyed. And this is where a judge would probably tell me to back off because I get fucking pissed here. I want to make sure I'm clear. Ms. Willis, you're aware that this whole hearing is based on the fact that you went on lavish vacations with somebody who you had given a contract to, contrary to regulations, right? So then in preparation for testimony, we could pretty much guarantee that you would know and have gone over all of your vacations so that you knew exactly when that happened. As an educated official of the state of Georgia, in a hearing that could affect the next president of the United States, knowing that your vacations with Mr. Wade are under close scrutiny, are you telling the court that you didn't go back and check your calendar, check your receipts, check your credit card statements? Are you telling me you came into this courtroom so unprepared that you can tell His Honor that you can't be sure if you stayed in a hotel that night or if you did that? Like, it's complete bullshit. But you can tell it's bullshit because she goes, I want to be as comprehensive as possible while I'm not sure of anything. This, to me, is a complete liar at this stage. There is no way that a professional, competent individual wouldn't step into that witness box and know the details of every second of the trip she went on with Mr. Wade in order to defend herself.
I'm not sure if we stayed in Miami on the October trip. I'm not sure if we stayed in Miami on the December trip. I just can't remember that.
You just can't remember. Is there a conceivable way you might be able to figure that out before you step in the witness box? Like maybe check your emails of thank you for checking into the Marriott on this day or whatever. Like it's fucking incredible.
And I also don't remember, so that the record is clear, I don't remember if the necessity was as we got on the ship or we got off the ship. But I do remember there was a night spent in Miami because either whatever. I don't remember. But I think...
What's the movie? You're showing me everything, but you're telling me nothing. I don't remember if it's before we got on the ship or if we... Nobody's asking about on the ship or off the ship. Like you're putting emphasis on words that don't matter, and you're giving details on issues that don't matter, and you're avoiding giving details on exact specific things that would expose you. So stop showing me everything and start telling me something.
that there was a night spent in Miami.
That cruise is the one that you took in October, right?
Ma'am, if you have something to refresh my recollection, I'm intentionally trying to not be difficult with you, but I don't want to make up something.
Right.
Okay, I'm intentionally trying to not be difficult with you, except a few minutes ago I said you personally are bad for democracy. Like, nothing she is saying is consistent. I'm intentionally trying to not make this tough for you, you evil tyrant who's trying to destroy democracy. And I just want to be clear with you. So if you can help me find out about my own travel records, if you, the lawyer, like maybe because I don't have my own travel records, this is fucking piss me off.
I know that on one of those two trips, we stayed in Miami. I am not sure right now. You're asking me about...
Oh, I'm sorry, you misunderstood. I was not asking you which night you stayed in Miami. I'm asking if you took a cruise in October 2022 with Mr. Wade.
Yes, and his mom.
And
I don't want to dig too much in it, but she goes, you're asking me about what happened 35 years, no, not 35 years ago. You're asking me about what happened a year and a half ago on a beautiful cruise, right? And I would lean into it. I would say, like, are you taking this case so unseriously, Ms. Willis, that you didn't go back and review the travel that you did with Mr. Wade? Like, is that how unseriously you're taking this case? And she'd be like, well, I'm taking it seriously. Well, then you would agree with me, knowing that the travel is a key part of this hearing. And knowing that you were going to take the stand, that it would have been prudent and professional for you to have reviewed that. And you didn't, right? You should be able to come here with the specifics of every element of your travel for Mr. Wade, and you can't tell the court a clear answer. Why is that? That's what I would say. The lawyer is getting a little caught up in the aggressiveness here, and I think missed a little opportunity there.
his mother, that's what I was asking.
Yes.
Is that the first time you met his mother?
Yes.
It was on that cruise, and that was Royal Caribbean, I believe?
I honestly don't remember what ship. I know we've taken 2 cruises. I don't know what the ships were.
I can just tell you, having never taken a cruise, that if I took 2 cruises in a year, I'd probably know what the ship is. Just say it's a big thing on the side of it that you see every time you get on the cruise. She doesn't know if it's Royal Caribbean. Maybe, maybe not. I think I would know. I think you would know. Maybe nothing rests on it.
But he paid for the flight and the cruise on Royal Caribbean that time.
So yes, he paid. He is the original one that does it. He has something called, Mr. Wade is a world traveler. I'm not as versed as him. He's been to 6 of the 7 continents. And so he has both a personal travel agent and he also has a cruise travel agent. I don't know anything about either of those kind of travel agents. So he is the one that would book the travel, but we need to be clear when we're talking about just because he booked it doesn't mean, like, I don't consider him having taken me anyplace. Let me just be honest. The only one that's ever taken somebody someplace is for his 50th birthday. I consider that I took him to Belize. And I took him to Belize because, I don't want to discuss his personal business, but I'm happy Mr. Wade is still here with us. And I did 50 big.
Like if this was like just your average citizen who worked at Walmart, okay, I can understand this answer. But you're asked, he paid for the tickets, right? And then all of a sudden we hear that he's a world traveler, right? Then she talks about another trip where it's this 50 big. All of these details, I don't consider that he paid for me. She's trying to get the narrative out before the questions are there. She just has to say, yeah, he booked the tickets and I paid him back. But all of this extraneous detail is very suspicious.
Very big.
So still on that October Royal Caribbean cruise, even though he had a travel agent. I'm sorry?
If you do me a favor, I don't know what cruise ship, what time. So if you'll help me and say October cruise with Mama or the New Year's Eve trip with his sisters, I'll be able to, we can communicate.
Look, she just wants you to make she wants people, nobody's buying this except people who are just diehard anti-Trump people. And I'm not interested in the politics. I'm interested in the witness. This is posturing. Will you do me a favor here, man, please? Will you just let me know for my own sake that it's October or it's December? Because you saying the cruise ship name, that's very confusing to me. Because I've been on 2 cruises, and so it's very confusing to me. And it's also her trying to control the scenario because she's nervous. We're now getting into the details of the travel plan in which she knows there was no record of her ever paying back. She knows she is very vulnerable here. She's trying to control what's going on. Looking at this picture, first of all, I would say as the Attorney General, you should probably come into court with the American flag facing the right way as opposed to being upside down. Looks a little odd there. But it's actually maybe indicative that she rushed into court, but it'd be nice if she had the American flag the right side up as she tries to be so clear with everybody in the justice system.
I just don't know what ship.
October cruise with Mama. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He paid for the cruise and the flights for that trip.
So he called his cruise agent and he booked that through them because he has a cruise agent.
Right.
He also has a regular agent. I don't know the cruise agent's
Who
name.
cares about
So I
these
wasn't
agents?
asking about his travel agent. I was just asking
But
if
I'm
he
trying
paid
to,
for those.
He did not, though.
Okay.
Because the reason I consider
did
that he
pay
did
for
not
them.
is I gave him his money back.
And I was about
So
to ask that. But initially, he paid for that.
Yeah, he called his cruise agent. Like, I think they have his card on record. They do whatever.
Okay. So initially, he paid for the cruise and the flight to Miami and the Royal Caribbean cruise.
And my understanding of that October cruise is like it was a package the lady did for him.
Okay. So, and I'll get to the reimbursements and all that. I'm just trying to confirm he paid for the flight and the cruise in October.
And I think that when you say things that way, I want this record to be
Initially.
abundantly clear that he calls his travel agent, he calls his cruise agent. They do whatever he tells them. He's like on a first name basis with these people. They do it.
Okay, this doesn't matter. If he's got a cruise agent with his credit card on file, he can tell his cruise agent, I'm booking a trip for me and my girlfriend. Please put mine on my card and she will call in and give you her credit card. This very bespoke cruise agent would do whatever he asks. This cruise agent isn't going to say, I'm sorry, we can only book this on one card, sir, for multiple people, right? This is where like a lawyer who is not quite prepared or who's too busy focusing on their notes isn't picking up on the subtleties, right? She's trying to make it look like this is the only logical way it could have happened. But if you could suck back or if you had good co-counsel there, just go, well, just a second, the cruise agent could have just taken your credit card to pay for your portion of the trip, right? You have a credit card. You're a high-ranking public official. Why are you trying to make it look like this had to be done this way because he's a world traveler with a cruise agent? It's nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense. Unless he said, look, you're paying me a crap ton of money for this case. I'm going to put this cruise on my business account, which will pay for it. And, you just give me some cash so I could pocket some cash. But what it probably a lot of people are thinking is he's using some of his billables to support a lavish lifestyle, right? That's corruption. And her explanations are so flawed. And just so you know, as foreshadowing, she rushed into the court this day. The next day, she was supposed to testify, and her own lawyers were going to ask her questions to fix some things. She never came back after this testimony. And she never came back because when they looked at it, they knew how devastating this was.
With these people. They do it, and then he tells me how much it is, and I give him the money back. I don't, just like you're asking me about the money with Robin, I don't do my friends like that. So if you tell me it's a G, then you're going to get $1,000. Whatever it is.
Okay, stop. Okay, if I'm booking a trip with my girlfriend and she wants to pay me back, I'm like, I would get an email from my travel or cruise agent saying, you know, Mr. Wade, you are booked. Here is your level of vacation. Here is your receipt. And the first thing I would do is press forward. And I would say to Fani Willis, here is a receipt for our trip, right? Please forward me the cash, you know, in the amount of half of it so that you know how much it is. Like, it's just something that you do to show that you're booked, that you're doing it together. But she's like, I don't do my friends like that. Like, this is a deviation from baseline again, right? She's not talking like a prosecutor. She's talking like somebody who's, I don't do my friends like that. If they say it's a G, I give them a G. Like, why are you reverting to this kind of language that sounds so beneath the office and beneath the gravitas of this case, making it look like, hey, this is just how we all do it. No, this is not how the Attorney General of Atlanta does it. This is not how public officials sworn to serve the state or the government does it. They don't do it like this. And I wish I could have dug a little deeper on her because she is getting away with incredible things right here.
I didn't ever make him produce receipts to me. Whatever he told me it was, I gave him his money back.
Isn't it true that he paid for the cruise and the flight on his credit card? I'm not asking about reimbursement or after. He used his credit card to buy the cruise and buy the flight, correct?
I have no idea how he paid for it, if it's a credit card, if it's a debit card, but certainly he called his cruise agent. You know, like how many people have a cruise agent? He calls his cruise agent, tells them where they want to go. They tell him what's booked. And you have to remember, he paid for, that initial was me, him, and his mother.
And then after that cruise, you all flew to Aruba and spent a couple days in a hotel there, correct?
Right, and his mother was not happy
He
that we left her
initially
behind.
paid for that. He initially paid for that.
For Aruba, yes, ma'am.
So let's talk about both of those. I know he initially paid for it. Did you pay him back?
For the cruise and for Aruba, yeah, I gave him his money before we ever went on that trip.
You gave him cash before you ever went on the trip?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so when you got cash to pay him back on these trips, would you go to the ATM?
No, lady,
You would not go to the ATM.
no.
Okay. So
All right. So we've now transitioned from, I don't know how he paid for it, but I know he called his cruise agent and paid for it. And then I don't do my friends like that. If he said I owe him this much, I owe him this much, and I paid him well before the cruise. I would actually try to figure out how long before, when was the cruise booked, when did you get the itinerary sent to you so you could make arrangements? Because if I'm going to go on a cruise, I want to know what day I have to be there, when we're flying, so I can make my schedule work. There would be some official communications with that. They haven't looked into it. That's what kind of sucks here, but it's easy to do this in hindsight. But this is where having amazing cross-examination makes a difference, because you can break a witness every once in a while when they're lying and going out of control like this particular witness. But now we've moved to, so you paid him in cash. Where'd you get the cash from? See the change from kind of forward? Now she's gone back and the hand has come back up to protect the neck. And also, if you see somebody cover their mouth, it's almost like they're trying to hide what they're thinking, because they know that their mouth communicates what they want. So when you see hands start going across the mouth like this all the time, they're trying to cover up what they're thinking. Or it can be seen as a sign of thinking about deceit. Not always. It can just be nervousness. It can be an itch. This could be pensive. But she's now sucked back and covered the neck right at the time she's asked where she got the cash. From my perspective, this means she knows this is a vulnerable spot. And what you're going to see is storytelling to explain things that should have simple answers.
Fulton County pays you direct deposit, I assume?
Yes, Fulton County and the state of Georgia both pay me direct deposit.
Okay. So the cash that you would pay him, you wouldn't get it out of the bank?
I have money in my house.
You have money in your house. So it was just money that was there.
Look at the mouth covered. Look at the neck covered. Finger right over her mouth. I have money in my home, right? I get paid by the government into my bank account, but I have money in my home. It's just, it's very sketchy. You know, you can have money in your home, but I would be going, okay, where exactly did you get that money? As an official of the state of Georgia who prosecutes criminals, where are you getting cash to put in your safe?
There.
When you meet my father, he's going to tell you as a woman, you should always have, which I don't have, so let's don't tell him that. You should have at least 6 months in cash at your house at all times. Now, I don't know why this old black man feels like that, but he does. When we were growing up, my daddy had 3 safes in the house. So my father's bought me a lockbox.
Again, who cares?
And I always keep
Where'd you get
cash
the
in my
cash
house.
from, my friend?
Now, I don't do it to the degree that my father would do it, so he would probably be ashamed with me.
This is called benchmarking to authority, and you'll see this a lot. She's referencing somebody to make it look like she's a good person. I respect my father. My father told me to do it. I'm doing it. My father told me I should move out. My father told me I should have cash in a way that's untraceable when I'm paying back vacations with people who are under contract with the government. It's trying to rely on an authority figure of a father to give you a moral excuse for something you don't have a good answer to. And she goes into great detail on this topic.
But I always have cash at the house. That has been, I don't know, all my life. If you're a woman and you go on a date with a man, you better have $200 in your pocket. So if that man acts up, you can go where you want to go. So I keep cash in my house, and I don't keep cash as good in my purse like I used to. I don't go on many dates, but when you go on a date, you should have cash in your pocket.
So my question was, where did that cash originally come from? If it didn't come out of the bank?
Cash is fungible. I've had cash for years in my house. So for me to tell you the source of when it comes from, when you go to Publix and you buy something, you get $50, you throw it in there. It's been my whole life. When I took out a large...
Okay, I would go down this road with a Mack truck. Where did that cash come from? Cash is fungible. When you go to Publix, you overpay, they give you some money back. This is where she's getting thousands of dollars from? To me, if you're a prosecutor, it's very important to know where you're getting cash. Because the assumption can be, you could be getting paid off to dismiss cases. I'm not saying she was, but to me, if you're going to claim on one hand you got a lot of cash and it's not coming from withdrawals from your bank, because let's say I get paid X amount a month, I can go if I want to have cash on hand and withdraw $1,000. There'd be a record of that. There are no bank records of any cash withdrawals. So where is the cash coming into her possession from? They don't do a good enough job examining that, but Ms. Willis does a giant fumble in a few moments that I think exposes her to a serious charge.
Amount of money on my first campaign, I kept some of the cash of that. Like, to tell
Sorry,
you...
I might have overtoken it. She said, I had money left over from my first campaign. Now, do you think her campaign donors would be happy to know that campaign funds, which were supposed to be directed towards campaigns, and if there's something left over, returned to donors? She essentially just said that campaign funds from donors, she took out, I don't know of what bank, but I would ask, what bank did you withdraw the campaign funds from? Or were you taking cash donations from people, which you're not allowed to do because you have to register any campaign donation? But did you take the cash from campaign donations, either out of the bank or just in cash, and use it for frickin' vacations? This is a campaign finance violation en masse. And she kind of opened the door to this because she's trying to protect herself from the fact that she never paid back Mr. Wade anything.
I just have cash in my house. I don't have as much today as I would normally have, but I'm building back up now. So you just put money in. It's a very good practice. I would advise it to all women.
Okay, but where are you getting the money from to put back in? There's nothing from your bank statement saying you're taking it out. Where are you getting this money to put it back in? From Publix when you buy toothpaste?
So you can't identify when you came into this cash or where the cash came from?
I didn't say I couldn't identify it. No, nobody gives me anything. I am sure that the source of the money is always the work, sweat, and tears of me. What you asked me...
You're sure it's the work, sweat, and tears of you? Well, then show me where you're taking it out of your bank account from a legitimate payment. There is no evidence of it. You're not sure of it. Where is the cash coming from? They should have gone right down here because the whole case rests on whether she paid him or not in cash, and she can't say where the cash came from.
When did the money go in there? What I am trying to tell you is, so I got divorced in 2005 from my husband. No. It's important. You said, where did the money come from? And I need to tell you where the money came from. And so for many, many years, I have kept money in my house. That money in my worst days has probably only been $500 or $1,000. At my best days, I probably had $15,000 in my house at cash. At all times, there's going to be cash in my house or wherever I'm laying my head.
The money that you paid Mr. Wade, the cash, in October of 2022, you do not know where that money came from?
I do know where it came from. It came from my sweat and tears.
Do you know which job it came from? Did it come from Fulton County or did it come from a private job?
It came from, what are you talking about? So it could have come from a private job because before I was DA, I was in private practice. So I earned money during that time period that's probably in there.
You don't
It
know
could have, what do you mean I don't know where it came from? I
I
absolutely.
understand the situation. We can move on.
Okay, thanks.
This is where I think the lawyer and the judge were like, she's like, it came from my sweat and tears. What job? I don't know what job. Well, you need to know if it fluctuates between $500 and $15,000, where is the cash coming from? It could have came from a previous job before you were the DA, like 4 years ago. But if it fluctuates, you're topping it up. Where is the top up coming from? Right? She's either lying that she had the cash or she doesn't want to say that she was making money on the side while working for the government. And then the question would be, how are you getting cash on the side? Are you declaring it on your income tax returns as revenue? If not, you're guilty of tax fraud. Right? This is just gold, but it kind of got fluffed over because the judge is a little uncomfortable. This actually makes me a little suspect because the judge should actually give great leeway here to dig into this. And the judge is like, either he's saying, I got it. This is unbelievable, so we can move on. Like, I'm not going to believe that she had it. Or the judge knows that this is vulnerable and could force him to make a decision he doesn't want to do. I'm not sure, and we'll see.
Same with Aruba. You don't know where that cash came
Cover
from,
in the
either,
neck.
right?
Ma'am, you
Look
are
at that neck cover.
mischaracterizing my testimony greatly. I'm not going to allow you to mischaracterize my testimony. I know that I keep money in my house. The amounts of money I gave Mr. Wade, it was never that serious. I don't think I've ever handed him more than $2,500 in a reimbursement. So we're not talking about $20,000 in cash. I don't have $20,000 in cash right now. The most I ever gave him, I know I gave him $2,500 when we went to Belize because we went to one hotel and then we went to a second hotel. That $2,500 I actually gave him while we were still in Belize. I know that the Aruba trip, the one that you described with his mom, I think I gave him about $2,000 for that trip for like total.
His mom went to Aruba with you?
The Aruba trip. So I consider that to be one trip. So we got off of a cruise ship and then we went to Aruba, which is why I cannot remember is that the time that we had to stay in Miami to wait for the flight for Aruba.
Look at the mouth. Like she hates having to answer for this. Let me ask you a question. If you heard earlier, I paid for the Belize trip because it was his big. We were going to do 50 big. I paid for the Belize trip. Well, if I'm going to pay for the Belize trip, I'd book it with my credit card. I might even ask his cruise agent, hey, can you set this up and just allow me to pay? Or is this cruise agent so wed to Mr. Wade that she refuses to use any other credit card? But then she said, for the Aruba trip, she paid him way before in cash. But then she says for the Belize trip, she gave him $2,500 in Belize. Why would you be giving him money in Belize if you paid for this trip as his 50 big? This is where you got to dig into it because she's running herself into logic traps here, but the aggression is kind of knocking the attorney off the game.
So I consider that one trip that we didn't like come back to Atlanta and leave. We flew down to Miami. We got on a cruise ship. We spent a couple of days with his mama. We came back to Miami. When we came back to Miami, either that day or the next day, we flew to Aruba. We spent a few days in Aruba and we came back. That was really one trip. Even though we went two places, it was one trip.
So let's talk about the California trip.
Now,
Is that when you were moving your daughter out to California? When you all went, or did you have two trips to California?
my daughter doesn't live in California.
Did she ever live in California?
I'm not discussing to you the location of my child.
So how many times did you go with Mr. Wade to California?
Once.
And you all stayed in Napa Valley and he paid for the plane tickets and the hotel?
He paid for the plane tickets and the hotel.
Now, blink rate has gone up. I don't know if you guys have noticed that her blink rate goes up when she talks about cash. Also, you'll notice that she stares at the prosecutor. When you're questioning somebody, I think it's a misconception. People think that liars don't hold eye contact with you. I think the opposite can be true. People who are very comfortable with the truth are like, I think I went down to the market store, then we took the train over there, then I look over, we grabbed a sub, and then we went out. People who are staring at you as they're talking, they know that people think eye contact is a sign of truth-telling. And also, it's the nervous system watching you. They're staring at you to see, are you picking up on anything? Are you going to do something that's dangerous to me? When I'm comfortable, I don't care what you're doing. If I'm telling the truth, I'm just saying, yeah, we went over here. I'm not fixated on how you're responding to my version because my version is true, right? She is laser locked on the attorney because she's trying to pick up what the attorney knows, what the attorney is going to ask. She's trying to outplay the attorney. It's a sign that is very concerning.
And what did you pay for on that trip?
I gave him much less cash that time, probably $400 or $500, and then I paid for a bunch of stuff. I think we did 2 different wine tours that you do, which are pretty expensive. I think I bought him. He likes wine. I don't really like wine, to be honest with you.
Nobody
I like Grey
cares.
Goose. I bought him a bottle of wine while we were there, and the sippings that you do. I can't remember how many, like 4 or 5 different places you go. I remember we went to this place that they do pairings. That was the most expensive thing that I think that we did.
All right, we'll skip ahead a little bit because really nobody cares about the details of the wine trip. What we want to know is, did you pay for it or did he pay for it? And how did you pay him back? And we just go into excruciating detail about the type of cheese that they ate. And it doesn't matter, but it's trying to avoid the important questions of, she just brought cash, paid for everything, doesn't have one receipt to provide. So she wasn't receiving a gift from somebody who was under contract.
To do something just very normal that a normal person would get to do if they weren't prosecuting this case, I got to drive 4 hours to do it.
And that's what I was going to ask you. Your security detail, did they take you to and from your house?
So I haven't been able to enjoy my home.
Condo, I'm sorry.
Since
And
March of
where you lay your head? Did they take you to and from where you lay your head?
99% of the time.
Would they take Mr. Wade to and from wherever you laid your head?
That has never in the history of ever happened, ever, okay?
Your security team has never taken him?
From my house, that's a lie.
Okay, so this is deliberate confusing. First of all, from a security perspective, if your security takes you there every day from the courthouse, people are going to know where you live, right? So moving from your house to your condo, the condo might be easier to control because it's got a controlled entrance and camera. But now she gets asked, did your security detail ever take Mr. Wade to your condo? Why this is relevant and people don't know the details is she changed her security detail. And the lawyers who are running this hearing haven't been able to communicate or contact her past security detail who were employed at the time. So she has a new security detail. And right now she's going to go on a diatribe about how the security detail never took Mr. Wade to her house. She knows there is no allegation that he ever went to her house. Why would an educated professional lawyer deliberately give details that she knows are not relevant? Why?
I'm
That's
asking
another-
if they've ever taken him anywhere.
And I'm telling you that that's never happened.
So your security team has never taken
My
Mr. Wade
security team has never taken Mr. Wade from any place where I have lived and brought him here. Never, not once, not ever.
anywhere? Have they ever taken the two of you together?
To where?
Anywhere.
Well, we've left this building and gone to lunch, but I go to lunch so rarely that is a very rare occasion. I am sure, and let me be clear, it wouldn't just be Mr. Wade. So I'm sure my security team has taken me to lunch. Probably been a time I've left here 7 o'clock, gone to get something to eat, and I don't even know that they would have taken him or if he would have driven himself, but they've taken me to do that. But we're talking very few, very far in between. Most days I don't even eat lunch, and when I do, it's
Who cares about when you eat lunch? One thing I know for sure is that if I've got a girlfriend and a security team and I'm going somewhere, I know that she'd be in the suburban limo with me. I'd have a clear memory of us going to do that. So there's just like, I take other people to lunch. It could be other people. Like this is deliberate extra detail that is very concerning if you're the judge.
because my assistant has heated up some bag, something, and I
Oh, who
eat through
cares
meetings
about
and
your
eat in my
fucking assistant?
office. It's not a practice of mine to go to lunch.
During the time period that you were dating,
Licking the
would
lips.
your security team ever take you two together anywhere?
No.
Never.
Look at the mouth.
If there was a lunch that occurred that I just described, if there was a meal that occurred that I just described, anything outside of that, and it needs to be very clear. Not often. Once, twice. Because I want to be
So she said no, but now she says-
over-inclusive, I'm saying once or twice.
So you want to be over inclusive? You know, you're being so helpful to the court that I'm saying once or twice. Either it happened or it didn't, my friend. You know, you're not going to make stuff up because you're trying to be over inclusive. You're pretending to be over inclusive by giving details that don't matter because you don't want to be caught in a lie. I also think that she's resting on my security detail, meaning her current one, as opposed to you haven't been specific enough to say, what about your past security detail? And so she's playing that card very well.
I'm not certain that it happened, but I'd rather be over inclusive with you.
So your office objected to us getting Delta records for.
So I want to be over inclusive with you about everything, but I'm not going to give you the Delta records that would show where I've flown. Why wouldn't you show where you've flown? If you didn't do anything, take a look at my Air Canada Super Elite pass and see where I've gone. Like I have nothing to hide.
Flights that you may have taken with Mr. Wade.
And well, no. Look, I object to you getting records. You've been intrusive into people's personal lives. You're confused. You think I'm on trial. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial.
So my question was, do you have any
I
problem?
object to getting any personal records of mine.
We're not.
But you want to be over
privileged to a
inclusive.
witness.
And I'm not. No. I'm not dealing with privilege. What we had offered to put them in.
It's just you want to be over inclusive with the BS you're telling the court, but you're not giving information that can help the court understand what happened when we ask for Delta records. To me, that's crazy.
Guys are getting a little old. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
those are the ones that you filed.
This looks like me for sure. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
These are the documents about expenses.
Judge, we'd move to admit 20 and 21.
I think you need to delineate which ones. Which
20
ones which.
is 2021, so it accounts for the time period, Your Honor, January the 1st, 21 through December the 31st, 2021. That is Defendant's Exhibit 20.
This is her trying to act like a
Defendant's
lawyer.
Exhibit 2021, it
Right,
accounts
she's
for
a
the time
witness.
period, January the 1st, 2022 through December the 1st of 2022.
I'd give her a gentle reminder that
Any
I'm the
objection
lawyer
to
here.
exhibits 20 and 21
Nope.
No objections.
from other counsel?
Trying to
Without
get
objection.
control when you're nervous.
When did your personal relationship with Mr. Wade end?
Our personal relationship ended in this year. So let's be very clear so that we don't mix words.
Got a little. Now this could be because she's upset. Maybe she was in love with Mr. Wade and he said we got to end it. But now as a baseline change, the arms come around and are kind of hugging the body. Another source of vulnerability. The vitals are in the center. So when people do this, they're generally kind of protecting themselves. When you sit like this, you're comfortable. You're showing to the world, here's all my vitals. Like I'm so confident you can attack my heart, my liver, my kidneys, my junk is here. Like, but when I do this is just an evolutionary reaction to say, okay, I'm a little bit worried, so I'm protecting myself from an attack. But it could be related to just being emotionally hurt from the breakup. So we'll see what she says about when the relationship with Mr. Wade ended.
I don't want to mix words in here. Mr. Wade is my friend right now. Mr. Wade, I would say, has been my friend since 2020. I think he started out as like a mentor and a professional colleague. He became my friend and somebody that I really respected. I feel very indebted to Mr. Wade for taking on the task of this job. And he is certainly my friend and one of the people that I respect the most.
Okay, so when did the relationship end? Long-winded explanation. He was this, he was that. I'm so thankful he took on this job. He wasn't qualified for the job. Honestly, there was not a contract. There was not a bidding. She gave him this job. She pretends that she offered it to somebody else, the governor, but she gave this guy the job. But she's grateful he took the job and billed $700,000. And then she says they became boyfriend and girlfriend and went on all these vacations. It's very odd. Why such a long answer to an easy question to answer?
So if you ask about a personal relationship, I consider myself to have a personal relationship right now, Mr. Wade. I consider myself to have a personal relationship with Anna Cross. I consider myself to have a personal relationship with Mr. Abadi. I consider myself to have a personal relationship with Andrew Evans.
Okay, let me.
So there's an objection here, and I understand it, but this is gold for me. I asked when the relationship ended. Everybody knows what we're talking about here. Why is a district attorney with an experienced judge giving such a long-winded answer and then saying, I have a personal relationship with my lawyer, I'd be like, Ms. Willis, let me ask you about that. Did you go on a vacation to Bahamas with Mr. Abato, your lawyer here? Did you sleep with co-counsel there? Did you, I would make her pay for it. I'm like, so you're going to agree with me that there's a significant difference between the relationship you have with Mr. Wade and the people whose names you just dropped. And I'm going to suggest to you knew exactly what I was talking about, and you don't need to try to distract the court from what's really at play here. This is posturing. This is gold for a good trial attorney, because the ego behind the lawyer or the doctor or the expert that's on the stand is making huge errors here as they try to control the situation. And we'll see how the lawyer deals with it.
So
Clarify that
I
before we
have a
go.
personal relationship with him as we speak right now.
A romantic
I don't think
rela-
that's what you're asking. I think that's what
Romantic
you're asking.
relationship. When did your romantic relationship with Mr. Wade end?
Covering the
When
mouth.
did it end?
Me and Mr. Wade, we are good friends. My respect for him has grown over these 7 weeks of attacks. We are very good friends.
Okay.
I think, but for these attacks, it would have been a friendship that, as life goes, you would have stopped having. I think that you have cemented that we'll be friends till the day we die.
Can we just get the question
let's-
answered here, my friend?
I can handle Mr. Seda. Let's have
She
it.
asked about a personal relationship.
She asked when the romantic relationship ended. That's the question.
It sometime in I'd say late summer of 2023. So I don't believe me in this is what you're really asking
Watch
about.
this.
This is the salaciousness of all of this, right?
No, I'm just
When
asking
you're
about your
re-
romantic relationship. When you stopped dating. asking.
I think that me and Mr. Wade, so he's a man, he probably would say June or July. I would say we had a tough conversation in August.
Covering the mouth.
So that men in relationships at the end of physical intimacy, women in relationships when that tough conversation takes place.
No, I think
And
generally.
where
Look at the covering the mouth. This is nonsense. I think she's creating a window of when it ended because some serious contract things were going down around that time, and it's going to be important of the date that it actually ended. I think she's uncomfortable talking about why it ended. Is she suggesting that he thinks it ended the last time they had sex, but she thinks it ended when she officially broke up with him, 3 months later? That makes no sense. So why is she obfuscating here? Why is she focusing on this point? And she's covering her mouth and looking very pensive. Something is going on here that I'd like to dig into a little bit more, but everybody is getting a bit frustrated. I think I could have put this witness into a very difficult emotional state because of how irritable and agitatable she is, but we'll see what happens the next minute.
when did he come to, I guess, the condo? I'm not sure what you called it, condo apartment. Would he come and stay at that condo or visit you there? I'm sorry, visit you there.
What condo, what apartment? I want to be clear.
So not your house. I know
What condo? What other condo is there? You want to be clear. What she's trying to do is buy time because she knows the question has been asked. Did Mr. Wade come to the condo? She's now thinking, what witnesses could have evidence that would show that he came there? What answers can I say that will prevent me from being exposed as a liar? So when she says, what condo, I want to be clear, what she's saying is, I need some time.
Clear.
So not your house. I know you classified one as house and one as condo. So I'm trying to use those terms.
So but there's been more. See, what you don't understand
knows
is
what
because
condo.
of this case, I got to move. And so I
Ms.
need
Merchant, if you
to.
could ask a more precise question.
Yes, please give me the time period. that we're
Mr.
talking
Wade visited you at the place you laid your head.
about. When?
Has he ever visited you at the place you laid your head?
So let's be clear, because you lied in this. Let me tell you which one you lied in. Right here. I think you lied right here. No. This is the truth,
Judge,
And
this
it is a lie. It
We're
is
gonna-
a lie.
Ms. Willis?
You see.
Mr. Sena, thank you. We're going to take 5 minutes. Be back in 5.
All right, look at that. Did he ever visited you at a place you laid your head? Right? She flies off the handle, starts holding up stuff and saying it's a lie. And the judge is like, we're taking a break because you're out of control. I wish I had more time and that wouldn't have been a break because that just would have been gold. The judge comes back, gives a very muted warning saying, look, he seems to be terrified of being criticized for attacking the district attorney. Their race relations are difficult in Atlanta. And as a white man, he has to be very careful how he approaches a witness who every third answer says, as a woman, as a woman, as a woman, a black man, you know, like, so he's got to be very careful because she's making it look like all of her answers are based on her being a woman, her and Mr. Wade being black. It puts the judge in a difficult spot. I think we should focus on like the legal issues, not sometimes people use other issues to try to protect themselves from scrutiny. But let's get back into, hey, did you ever come to your residence and the judge says, behave, and then we get back at it.
Starting with the fact that we won't talk over each other. And from there, we'll get through this.
This guy looks
Ms.
stressed.
Thank you, Judge. How often did Mr. Wade visit you at a place where you were living between 2019 and 2021?
So you want to start with the lie that he lived with me in South
That's a
Fulton in
specific question
2019,
that she
a home
doesn't
he's
answer.
never been to? That's one lie you told in your
Judge,
document.
No,
you-
Judge, I didn't ask her about that.
Ms. Merchant, I want you to ask a very precise question. I think she's saying and answering that he did not live with her. So why don't we break that up into smaller
Ever.
parts?
And I didn't ask about living.
But you put in your, while we're talking about professionalism, while we're talking about professionalism, she put in 3 different documents he
This
lived
is
with
so
me.
We'll ask her to
unacceptable.
respond.
In
And
2000
filed that with the court.
in
professionally.
2019,
He's never been to South Fulton. In 2019, I lived in South Fulton. He has never been to my residence in
Okay.
2019.
We're asking about the condo, though, my friend.
Ever, not once.
in
2020?
2019, he's never been to your residence, any place.
I lived in my home in South Fulton before I started getting the threats that were here.
Yeah, but
A
you
house
also lived
I
in the condo.
paid for with my own sweat and tears. I'm no longer able to live there. But in 2019, I did. And in the 2 months of 2019 that I knew Mr. Wade, 3 months, the beginning of October, all of November, and all of December, Mr. Wade never came to my house in South Fulton.
Okay, but the question is, did he come to your condo that I call a crash pad in the 3 months that you knew Mr. Wade? And she's deliberately directing and focusing on the house, which is a giant red flag that she doesn't want to talk about the condo, which she knows is the issue. You know, the brain falls apart when it's stressed because any rational person would know that this looks really sketchy to be focusing on this area.
Let me help you out. I lived there in 2020. He never came to my house in 2020, let alone live with me, as you put falsely in these documents. In the first 3 months of 2021, when I could still enjoy my home, Mr. Wade never came to South Fulton, and it is certainly a lie that he lived with me.
So in 2020, so you said 2019, 2020, did Mr. Wade ever visit you at a place that you
He
resided?
has never been to my home in South Fulton. 2020 was before I knew that a phone call was going to be made and I was going to have to abandon my home. As a result thereof, he never visited, lived at, came to, or has seen South Fulton.
You qualified that with your home in South Fulton.
That's where I lived in 2020.
2020, did he ever visit you at a place that you resided?
Okay. I don't understand. You're going to give me guidance. In 2020, I
she's-
lived in South Fulton.
Okay.
That's the only place I lived in South Fulton. That's before I had to abandon my home, Judge.
All right.
And at my home in
I think we're
South
gonna clarify
Fulton,
this. We'll break it
he never came there, okay? So if you don't come someplace, you can't live there.
Ms. Willis,
She's off the rails. She's asking the judge to help her get out of this circumstance, which is looking like she's backed into a corner. Like, this is completely unhinged testimony. She knows exactly what the lawyer is asking about. Did Mr. Wade come to the condo? Did you guys hang out there? Right? Because she says they didn't have a relationship until 2021. But there are witnesses that say that he went there quite a bit. I believe there's a witness that said that he stayed out over there multiple nights. If he was just a friend, why is he staying over at your condo in your friend's condo overnight? And it's so obvious she's avoiding it.
I'm going to have to caution you. That's going to be the first time I have to caution you. We have to listen to the questions as asked. And if this happens again and again, I'm going to have no choice but to strike your testimony. So, we need to break this down. Mr. Merchant's question, I believe, was asking whether you lived anywhere other than South Fulton.
I did not live anywhere but South Fulton, Georgia in 2020. That is before I began my prosecution of this case, and it was my plan to only live there.
Did Mr. Wade ever visit you at the condo that you leased from Miss Yurdi?
He visited that condo, yes.
Oh,
He
what
did.
you? Yo,
Yes.
look at the mouth. The
Did
tongue.
he ever spend the night at that condo?
No.
Just visited.
Yes,
Look at
we
the
did visit
chest
for sure.
breathing.
Did you ever go out
This
to
lady,
eat together?
this lady is extremely nervous. Like all of the breathing has come up to the chest. Her tongue is at the side. This is, a kid who's trying to solve a problem. Like how do I get out of this? And she is nervous right now. There would be an opportunity to catch her in a lie in some cases, but this is just very, very difficult.
Out to eat together, other than the lunches you talked about,
In
during
2020?
2019 or 2020?
I would think that we probably went to lunch, but it wouldn't have been, let me think, 2019. I'm going to say, I don't know, I'm going to say we probably broke bread someplace in 2019. I don't remember it, but it seems like we would have broke bread sometime in 2019. So I'm going to say yes, although I have no recollection. But it seems to me like I go out to eat and drink with pretty much everyone, so I'm going to say yes.
So outside of the vacations that we've already talked about, did you ever go out to dinner with Mr. Wade?
I mentioned to you that
I'm going to object as to what time period. Like we're asking very vague questions. I thought we were treating the witness as hostile under 611. We're no longer doing that. So we're going to go back and forth. We need to be more specific with our questions if we're going to treat her as hostile.
All right, Ms. Merchant, it's not so much, I think you can elect between leading and open-ended questions, but I think we are still wondering about, and I think we need to get back on track of focusing on the financial benefit or the relationship.
And my next question about if you did go out to dinner, who paid when you went out to dinner?
he paid, I paid.
You both paid.
Okay, so let me be real clear. We didn't say, oh, the bill is $102. You give $51, I'll give $51.
Oh, because that's not normal that people say we'll split the bill? Like that's actually pretty freaking normal. So don't make it look like it's not normal, right? If you're dating, it might be different, but two professionals to go out to dinner, either one person picks it up, but it's certainly not normal to say, hey, we'll split the bill and drop 2 credit cards.
I don't operate like that with my girlfriends. I don't operate like that with anyone. He caught the bill, I caught the bill. Whomever.
Did you ever pay him through Cash App?
No.
You only ever paid him through cash?
Well, yes. What we're talking about, I'm very confused
You've
now.
never
Like,
given Mr. Wade money
What are
through
you
Cash
confused
App.
about?
No,
The only money you've ever given him outside of a contract is cash.
I didn't give him money in a contract, so that was cute, but I didn't give him money outside, in a contract. What happened, no, we're going to answer it since you said it. He worked more hours than he was paid, and the county paid him for the work that he did. So don't be cute with me and then think that you're not going to get an answer.
And I will ask you about the contract in a minute. I asked you about cash. Did you ever pay him
worried
anything?
here.
And I'm trying to qualify my questions. I'm not talking about the contract with Fulton County that was paid. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about outside of that. Did you ever pay him anything other than cash?
I've only given him cash a few times in the course of what we're talking about.
So you've
If
never
we
used
would
your
go to
credit card?
dinner,
Let her finish her answer.
if we would go to dinner, I wouldn't give him cash because he paid for dinner or I paid for dinner. I've given him cash only a few times in life, probably 4.
Okay.
Probably the most money I've ever handed him is $2,500. The least amount of money I've handed him, probably between $500 and $1,000.
You never wrote him a check?
Ma'am, I don't have checks.
Okay. So you have no proof of any reimbursement for any of these things because it was all cash, right?
The testimony of one witness is enough to prove a fact.
So my
Are you
question was,
telling
do
me
you
that
have
I'm
any
lying to you?
proof?
Is that what you're intimating right here?
I'm asking if you have any proof that you paid him any.
Okay, so first of all, this is a district attorney. The testimony of one witness is proof? No. I don't know where they taught you that in law school, my friend, but the testimony of one witness is evidence, right? And if there's no other evidence to contradict it and it's believable, it could amount to be the truth. But if there's another witness who testifies to something different, the one witness, this is just a legal misstatement that I can't believe, but she thinks because she's saying it, her saying it is proof, even though there's no record. She knows that the way to establish proof is with corroborating evidence, which is receipts, bank statements, other witness testimony, videos, like emails. She knows that. And she's misrepresenting the law in front of a judge to suit her own needs.
The proof is what I just told you.
You have no written proof. Is that correct?
So I have some, probably some transactions like in Belize. I probably spent $500 on my card in Belize.
So you
I
used
spent
a card in Belize,
800
but you couldn't use the card to book the
$900
travel.
on each of our tickets to go to Belize. I did the $700. I probably got some minor expenses in Aruba that would be on a card. But for the most part, for those trips, other than, so the 2 cruises, I gave him money for those before we ever left, because they were pre-booked. Let me answer.
Well, the question was if you had any written proof. And so
So I've answered you that I've had written
we
proof.
can move
for
to the next question. If you've answered if you had any written proof, and that was my question.
I want to make sure that we're clear that for the 2 cruises,
Judge,
and that's
I
the
asked if
cruise
she gave
plus
him written
Aruba.
proof.
We're not going to talk over each other. Ms. Merchant, she answered your question, so we can ask the next question. Ms. Willis and Ms. Cross will have plenty of opportunities to let you clarify your answers when it's her turn.
Thank you, Judge. Knowing your role as district attorney, you know that public funds are scrutinized and money is scrutinized and things like that. You
And
understand.
I've never, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You understand you're under a microscope. You have reporting requirements, all of those types of things. You have no record, other than your testimony, of the money that you've given Mr. Wade.
You've already asked that question. Let's keep going.
When you took office, you had a tax lien of $4,600. Did you pay that with cash when you made that tax lien whole?
I probably paid through, however you pay.
This is an important thing. So when she takes office, she has a tax lien of a few $1,000s, right? That as a district attorney, she's not paying a tax lien. She has this cash to pay for vacations, but she never uses her cash to pay the tax lien. There's no record of it. It's just an odd element.
I don't think that they were there at that point. Certainly my baby wasn't there.
I'm talking about this entire period. We're talking about,
There's another lawyer
if I
asking a
remember
question.
correctly, and you'll correct me, I'm sure, you said that you stayed there at what I would call the
Watch the
Yerty
blink rate.
condo until January of 2022, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm asking you in that period, which would be February to April of 2021 until January of
blinking,
22,
blinking.
did any of your children stay at your house?
And you don't have to yell at me. I'm able to understand. So I would ask you to not yell at me. That being said, I don't actually expressly remember, but I can tell you since I have left my home, there have been times my oldest daughter came in. But I can't tell you with certainty the time window that you've said, if they did or not. And so I don't want to speculate to that. But there was some time that my oldest daughter came back, whether it was that period or
Look at this answer. It's nuts. You left the house, you said, because there were gang threats. But you're not aware of when your children went there? Like you might say your father stayed there because he's an old guy and there's no threat. But she doesn't know when her children went there. It's not, she knows that the reason why she wasn't there wasn't because of the safety issues. And she can't answer when her kids stayed at this dangerous place. It's nonsense.
Condo.
I guess I don't understand the distinction, but no one ever, I think my baby's my oldest child. I think she spent one night with me, maybe my oldest and my youngest, but I think that whole
This is
time I
about
was
the
in that
condo.
place, other than that one night, I don't think anyone ever, this is a very lonely period in my life. I don't think anyone ever spent the night other than maybe one night. I remember a picture of my baby sitting on the couch in that place, and I'm thinking she spent that night, but just a very lonely time in life.
Okay, we'll stay with the lonely theme just for a minute. Did Nathan Wade visit you at the Yerty condo from the time you moved in until he was hired on November the 1st of 2021?
So I moved out of that condo, but during that time period, I'm sure he came to visit. He came to visit. I can remember us going, I think the restaurant's lickety split. I can remember him picking me up, going to.
So this is more effective cross-examination. Did Mr. Wade visit you between these dates at this condo? very specific, didn't give her any reason to move, and then she's obfuscating here quite a bit.
Ordering some food and coming and sitting at my table and eating. So I remember times that he visited me at that condo, yes.
Okay, could you give us an approximation of how many times Mr. Wade visited you at the condo between the time you moved in and prior to November 1 of 2020?
I don't think often, but I don't want to speculate.
She
Can we
knows he
say
came there multiple
more than
times.
5, more than 10?
I'm going to tell you the problem I'm having here.
I'll tell you what the problem you're having here.
Let's say more than 10, but I'm not sure that that's even.
So this friend, who she says she's not in a relationship with, came to her condo 10 times, her place of residence 10 times, more than 10 times.
Accurate. He certainly has come and picked me up, gone to grab some food to eat. I don't remember him being in that condo a lot.
Okay, that's your.
I'm sorry. You want a number, and what I don't want to do.
Giving me your current and best recollection is all I'm asking for.
That's all I can give you, sir.
How many times did any of the prosecution team, how many times did Anna Cross come to that condo between the time you moved in and November 1st of 2021?
I don't think Anna's ever been to that condo.
What about any other prosecutor that's involved in the prosecution of this case?
I don't think any of them have.
Just Mr. Wade.
That's correct, sir.
But it was a lonely time.
Oh my God, that 2021. I have a lot of guilt about this time period in my life. Let me tell you why. But yes, it was a lonely time.
Okay.
I was very appreciative to the citizens for giving me.
We don't want to hear about lonely time where you pretend that this guy who's coming to your house wasn't there for a relationship. You can have a friendship, let's be clear, but this is not the testimony we heard from other people. We're going to move on to some things where this is where you can tell when somebody doesn't really care, because in this case, she's talking about Mr. Wade, who she watched testify. And I think she's not happy with his answers because he was caught. He looked very bad in his testimony in terms of how he explained things. And I think she decided she needed to rush in and correct some things because that was what they had agreed on. Just my opinion, but that's my. But then he starts to ask her about Mr. Wade. And let's see if anybody here can identify the proverbial throwing under the bus.
Alone.
I'm going to object as to the relevance, and this has already been addressed earlier as it relates to other records. This is an improper line of questioning. He's doing it for the purpose of harassment. Frankly, Your Honor.
I'm just going to sustain it on relevance. Mr. Sadow, if that's something you want to follow up privately, you can do that.
Okay. Last area, briefly.
Yes, sir.
You had contact with Mr. Wade in the year 2020, correct?
Ooh.
It came to my
I
place
had
10 times.
some contact
She just
with
said it
Mr.
came to my
Wade.
house 10 times.
Explain when you say some contact. Please tell us, talking about 2020.
I had some contact with Mr. Wade in 2020. One of the reasons your allegations are so preposterous, or Ms. Merchants that you have joined, is...
Ma'am,
No, no,
I
no,
didn't
no,
ask you about the allegations. I asked you about your contact. That's all I ask you, okay? I appreciate that you want to say something, but I'm interested in, did you have contacts with Mr. Wade in 2020? And your answer so far has been yes, correct?
very limited contact because Mr. Wade had a form of cancer that makes your allegations somewhat ridiculous.
And I do appreciate the
I'm not going to
characterization.
emasculate a black man, but I'm just telling you.
I'm
that
sorry, what?
I'm not going to.
Okay. First of all, I'm not going to emasculate a black man. So you'd emasculate a Latino man or an Asian man or a white man? Like, why are you not going to emasculate? Why does that matter? Second of all, you just emasculated a black man on national TV. So in order to protect herself, essentially what she's saying here, the allegations are they had an affair that was dated back to the conference 2019. He asked, did you have contact with him in 2020? She had said previously, yeah, he came to my place 10 times at least, but I don't want to explain on it. But now she's saying, what makes your allegations that we had an affair nonsense is that he couldn't get it up. That's what she's saying. And I don't want to emasculate a man by telling you that he can get it up, but I just told everybody that he couldn't get it up. So she essentially tries to make it look like she's being virtuous while she actually humiliates this man in order to protect herself.
Emasculate a black man. Did you understand that?
All right,
Well, I don't
let's
think
get
we should
back on
discuss
track.
further.
Mr. Sadow, next question.
Trying to, Your Honor. Would you tell us on the occasions in 2020 that you had contact with Mr. Wade?
I'm sorry, I thought I had answered that. Yes, sir. There were times in 2020 I had contact, but 2020 was the year I was running for office. It was a year that he was going through some serious medical issues, and I did not
It was
have
the
much
year
contact,
he
but I
was
certainly had
still dealing with
contact
divorce
with him
papers,
in
which have now been
2020.
proven
Did
to be
you go out
false.
to eat with him?
Court statement.
Maybe, probably.
Let's move forward to this nonsense.
Did you-
Thank you for not
did you
emasculating a
visit
black
him
man. Unbelievable. Another lawyer, a couple questions.
Good afternoon, Ms. Willis. How are you
Ask
doing?
yourself if a
I'm
district
very well.
attorney
How are
should
you,
know
Mr.
these
McDougal? I
answers.
think this is our first in-person meeting, correct?
Second.
Second? Well, I apologize for not remembering you more clear.
That's quite all right. I'm referring now to exhibit number 21,
Yes, sir.
which was your financial disclosure form for 2022.
Yes, sir.
And it has a question which requires you to disclose any gifts or favors from a single prohibited source in the aggregate amount of $100 or more. Do you see that?
So everybody who worked in a high position in government knows about these forms. You have to do a disclosure form, called different things in different states and countries, saying, I did not receive a gift from a prohibited source that exceeds a certain amount of money. And in Atlanta, it's $100 in aggregate in a year. Now, as the senior person, as a district attorney who has the ability to decide to prosecute businesses and individuals or withdraw charges, that is exceptionally important because people can try to buy your influence so that you drop cases or don't do cases against certain businesses. It's so important. It's part of the orientation. It's part of everything you do. And when you're giving a contract to another lawyer who's benefiting $700,000 to his bank account, you would be very aware of that, I would think, if you're a competent human being. Let's see how she understands her obligations.
$100 or more. Do you see that?
I don't, but I believe you.
It would be on page 2 in the middle, paragraph number 3.
Yes.
And what is your understanding of a prohibited source for purposes of this form?
I believe there's some classification of somebody you like don't have a personal relationship with that gives you $100.
All right, if you look under there
Sorry.
at subparagraph 2, Romanet 2,
She pretends not to know because she knows that she's
it
guilty.
defines it as someone that you know or should know is seeking to do or is doing business with the county, correct?
Yes, but yes.
That includes
Mr. Wade is doing business with the county as a contractor who's putting in huge legal bills.
Yes.
That includes Mr. Wade as of the date you filled out this form, correct?
Yes, but he never gave me a gift of $100 or more. The only thing that I would say maybe went over that, but I don't think it ever did, is if we went to dinner and my meal was $100. But I don't think I've ever eaten $100 worth of food at a restaurant because I would not pay him back if we went to lunch or went to dinner. But trips, I paid him back for. You know, I never thought about the money until y'all brought it up, and I would be less than honest that says I was giving him the money back because I was the district attorney. I didn't take gifts from him.
You never thought about the money as the district attorney with the lead prosecutor on the Trump case submitting $100,000 bills, paying for vacations. So you're either grossly incompetent and shouldn't be in the job or you're a liar because it can't be the middle. Anybody in that position with that amount of gravitas and responsibility would be absolutely sensitive to this issue.
For a lot of personal reasons. Anyway, I did not take gifts from him.
And so your reason for not disclosing
any gifts from Mr. Wade on exhibit number 21 is that the aggregate amount on a net basis was less than $100 in the year 2022. Is that correct?
I did not accept a gift of him of more than $100 in 2022. The one exception to that, because I want us to be clear, is we probably went out to eat multiple times in the year. If you're considering eating a meal, because
Like she's pretending, if you consider eating a meal, it is so clear to everybody in any business, any government official, that a contractor taking you out to a meal is a gift, right? You get your T-bone steaks, you get your truffles, that's a gift. She has to know this. She can't be this incompetent. But she's making it look like he never paid more than $100. So are you telling me that you don't know what the word aggregate means in the year? Right? It's because all of your meals were under $100. He didn't give you an aggregate of $100 in gifts, which is meals and entertainment. Is that what because if she's saying that, she should not be in that position. Like, because that is just basic integrity guidelines.
we went out multiple times, that probably went to the level of more than $100. But if we're doing tit for tat like that, I probably paid for as many meals as he paid for. And so I did not receive any gifts from him.
The question on the form,
I understand the
the
question.
aggregate in excess of $100, and your testimony is that you did not receive in the aggregate more than $100.
All right, Mr. McDougal, you can sit down now.
I don't believe she answered that question, Your Honor. She answered as to specific individual gifts.
And you're not listening to my answer either, so we're done.
Very well.
Okay.
Again, a little concerned that the judge kind of stops going down things that make it very clear that she breached the rules. He seems like a thoughtful guy, but it looks to me, I'm a little worried that he doesn't want to come to a conclusion that he has to remove the prosecution team from the case, because there are two junctions in this hearing where he stops questioning that, to me, are the kill shots. Maybe he just has seen it. Like maybe, like as all of us probably are aware, he saw that she's deliberately pretending not to understand. And he may take an adverse finding from that and doesn't need to embarrass the institution anymore. Anyhow, going to wrap it up from now. It's a lot of testimony. I just thought it was really interesting to see a district attorney go into the witness box, a district attorney who's put a lot of people in jail who were sitting in that witness box, and just to show people how, taking your own counsel is probably not the best idea. A doctor is the worst patient to have. A lawyer is the worst client to have. I think this is another train wreck for Fani Willis and her career. And I think it's a train wreck because she's not being honest to the court, and she did a disservice to the American people when she had an important task to do. And I think it's going to derail the whole case and work to the benefit of Trump. So the lesson learned there is you have to be of the highest character, integrity, when you have something that's going to have this type of public scrutiny. And love can blind people and make them make bad decisions. Until next time, this is Phillip Millar.